Time now to round up a big story from the week. The United States has opened up its first embassy in Cuba since restarting diplomatic relations. The flag was raised over the embassy Friday for the first time since 1961. Secretary of State John Kerry was in Cuba for the ceremony, marking the first time a Secretary of State has been there in 70 years. Former Cuban leader Fidel Castro says the United States should pay Cuba millions of dollars because of the sanctions put in place. President Obama says he wants to lift the economic embargo, but that would be an uphill battle in Congress. So now that the embassy is open, how do we move forward? That's our topic this half hour. We want to hear from you on our Fox 26 Facebook page. You can comment on the post that we have there, as well as on Twitter. Be sure to use the hashtag Fox26forlife. Joining us live in the newsroom is our Roundup panel led by our senior legal analyst, Chris Tritico. We have attorney Nomi Hussein joining us and public policy analyst Jackie Bally. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
What did you think when you saw the flag being raised there on Friday?
You know, this has been a long time coming. The economic sanctions and the sanctions the United States placed on Cuba were not working. They haven't changed anything that the communist government, the Castro government, was going to do and has been doing since he took over in late 50s. And so it's probably time to look at something new. The president's probably done all he can do other than name an ambassador at this point, because without Congress lifting the sanctions, it really isn't anything else that he can do, Nomi Hussein. And this idea from Fidel Castro, or I think it was Fidel that said the United States needs to pay them for the sanctions, that's never going to happen.
Sure. Well, coming back to your point, Albert Einstein defined insanity as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. The sanctions we have in place have been in place since October 19th, 1960, 55 years. Fidel Castro and his brother have outlasted 10 U.S. presidents, and they simply haven't worked. These are unilateral sanctions. Other countries are doing business with Cuba. And despite the fact that we have all these sanctions in place, the United States is the 5th largest exporter to Cuba. So this idea of sanctions has not worked, will not work. We need to try something different. And the way to introduce democracy into Cuba is through economic empowerment, which is what the Cuban people need, deserve, and which the United States should do.
Isn't that a fairly valid point, especially when all of our partners began trading with Cuba over the last 20 years, as France and most of Europe now has agreements with Cuba to trade with them?
The problem is that we do have the same regime in place. You heard his statements. He's saying we now owe him money. So it's not as if opening sanctions or having now a position or placement in Cuba is going to actually ease relations. He's already coming out swinging. And, you know, working with the enemies like we did with Russia, Iran, and now Cuba, we've proven, at least this administration has proven so far, that working with Russia and Iran has not been successful. So people are hesitant to say, yes, let's try this because of our history with those two countries. We need to realize we can't really be friends with our enemies, and Cuba is clearly our enemies. The plan in place, and only time will tell if what is being proposed is going to be successful or not. But the plan in place is being described as something that cannot be successful and is not helpful to the Cubans. As Nomi pointed out, we do need to help the Cubans and the residents who are there, but this plan, according to those who are looking at it closely, and only time will tell if this is true or not, does not do that.
Well, the United States has tried to change communist countries for years. China, Vietnam, North Korea, the list goes on. We have never been successful in forcing a country to drop communism and change to democracy. Why
correct.
would we think that we could do it in Cuba?
I don't think we can do it in Cuba, and I don't think this move is going to help that either.
I absolutely disagree. I think this is the right step. I think we need to remove the economic sanctions against Cuba, give the people of Cuba economic power, and from inside they can change. You're right, Chris, we've never been able to change a communist regime, and we deal with bad people around the world all the time. So why should Cuba be an exception? And Cuba is 90 miles from our coast.
All right, let me go to Sally. She's monitoring our social media.
Okay, we'll take a look at Twitter first. We've got a few different tweets coming in. The first one says, "Great day for freedom in Cuba. The future can be amazing and beneficial for both countries if done properly." This person says, "Cubans want normal relations, but stop telling us what we should do. Remember your own words, John Kerry. Cuba's future is for Cubans to shape." And then Texas Senator and presidential candidate Ted Cruz says, "Another Obama, Clinton, Kerry bad deal will neither help Cuban people nor secure America."
I don't know how Clinton got involved in that.
He wrapped them all in.
That's right. That's right. And you know, and I want to agree with Jackie. Time's going to tell what's going to happen here, because Cuba's going to be demanding things from the United States, and one of those things, Jackie, you already pointed out, was reparations, I guess. But the other thing that's going to be a major sticking point here is Guantanamo Bay, and the president has said, "You can forget it. It's ours. We're keeping it."
Right, right. And you know what? To me, the most troubling thing is if actually there was a change in regime or a change in leadership, then I would be hopeful. But the fact that we have the same family, as you've mentioned, that or Nomi mentioned, that has outlasted 10 presidents, but it's the same family, it's the same mindset. Nothing has changed in Cuba. So why do we think all of a sudden they are going to be they're going to change their government, which I don't think they will. Why do we think that talking to our enemy is going to change any policies that we currently have?
And what about that? I mean, the same thing, you know, Nixon went to China and said, "We're going to open relations with China." They steal from us every day. We didn't do anything other than open trade.
Sure. Well, first thing is, what's the other solution? More of the same? It's more insanity. Second thing is that if you give people economic power, if you give them an option, they're going to take it. Right now, the people of Cuba have no option. This at least gives them another option.